The moment the old garbage-collecting woman lifted her head and looked straight into Eleanor Whitmore's eyes, Eleanor felt something crack inside her chest, because in that single glance was a question no amount of wealth could silence. If everything you had was taken away today, who would you still choose to be tomorrow? That question would follow Eleanor through shame, truth, and redemption before the night was over, and it would change a family forever. Everyone in the city knew Arthur Kingsley as a legend. He had built a waste management empire from nothing, turning discarded things into value, trash into treasure. Magazines called him ruthless but visionary. What no one knew, not even his own son, was that Arthur had grown tired of guessing people's hearts by their words. He wanted to see actions. And so, at 72, with a sharp mind and a heavier heart, Arthur made a decision that would test the very soul of his family. Arthur's son, Julian Kingsley, had married Eleanor Whitmore 2 years earlier. Eleanor was elegant, educated, and admired in high society. She hosted charity luncheons, wore kindness like perfume, and spoke often about humility. But Arthur sensed something brittle beneath her grace, not cruelty, something more dangerous, indifference. So Arthur disappeared from his penthouse for 1 week and returned as someone else entirely. He became Margaret Hale, dressed in a faded coat, gloves with holes at the fingertips, and a headscarf pulled low. Arthur transformed himself into a garbage-collecting woman assigned to Julian and Eleanor's neighborhood. His back bent easily under the weight of a cart. His voice softened. He practiced silence, and with that he stepped into the lives of those who thought they already knew him. The first morning Margaret Hale appeared, Eleanor barely noticed her. She was late for a brunch meeting and annoyed by the smell from the bins. Margaret worked slowly, deliberately, struggling with a heavy bag that split open near the curb. Trash spilled out, old food, broken glass, useless things. Margaret knelt to gather it, her hands shaking. Eleanor watched from her car, irritation flashing across her face. She honked once, sharply, then twice. Some people really shouldn't be allowed to work if they can't do it properly, she muttered, driving around the mess without offering help. Arthur noted everything. Over the next few days, Margaret became a familiar presence. Julian nodded politely when he passed her, once even offering her a bottle of water. Eleanor never did. She complained about missed pickups, about the smell, about these people not understanding standards. Yet when cameras were present neighbors, friends, Eleanor's tone changed. She smiled. She spoke gently. She even handed Margaret a sandwich once, making sure someone was watching. Arthur felt the sting not because Eleanor was unkind, but because her kindness required witnesses. The real test came on the 5th day. Margaret collapsed outside the Kingsley home. It wasn't dramatic, just a quiet, frightening slump to the pavement. Julian rushed out immediately, calling for help, kneeling beside her. Eleanor followed, panic mixed with irritation. "We can't have this happen here," she said, glancing at the house, at the street. Margaret's eyes fluttered open. "I'm fine," she whispered, "just tired." Julian insisted on calling an ambulance. Margaret begged him not to. "Please, I can't afford it." Eleanor sighed. "Then she should have thought of that before," she said, her voice low but sharp. "This is not our responsibility." That sentence landed like a stone. Arthur looked at her, really looked at her, and asked softly, "If kindness costs you nothing, why does it feel so expensive?" Eleanor stiffened. "You don't understand how the world works." Arthur smiled faintly. "Oh, my dear, I understand it very well." Later that evening, Julian insisted Margaret rest in their guest house for the night. Eleanor protested but gave in, embarrassed by neighbors watching. Inside, Eleanor placed a blanket on the chair instead of the bed. She left soup untouched on the counter. She avoided conversation. But Arthur was patient. He waited that night. Eleanor entered the guest room to retrieve something and found Margaret, sitting quietly, holding a small photograph. It showed a young boy and a man standing beside a garbage truck, both smiling. "My son," Margaret said softly. "He died young, worked hard, believed dignity came from effort, not status." Eleanor hesitated. "I'm sorry," she said, but her voice lacked weight. Margaret met her eyes. "Tell me something," she asked gently. "If your life changed tomorrow, if your money vanished, would you still recognize yourself?" Eleanor scoffed. "That won't happen." Arthur nodded. "That's what most people think." The next morning everything changed. Julian gathered the family in the living room. Eleanor entered to find lawyers, board members, and a familiar figure standing tall, no scarf, no cart, no disguise. Arthur Kingsley. Eleanor's face drained of color. Arthur's voice was calm but firm. He explained everything, the disguise, the test, the observations. No anger, just truth. "I wanted to know who would care when nothing could be gained," he said, "and who would perform kindness only when rewarded." Eleanor tried to speak. Words failed. Arthur turned to her. "You are not evil, Eleanor, but you are asleep, and wealth has made you forget that character is what remains when convenience is removed." Then came the consequence. Arthur announced that a large portion of the inheritance intended for Eleanor's future projects would be redirected to fund worker welfare, health care, and dignity programs for sanitation staff. Eleanor would remain part of the family, but privileges would now come with responsibility, real responsibility. Eleanor broke down not from loss of money, but from the unbearable clarity of being seen. Weeks passed. Something changed. Eleanor began volunteering quietly. No cameras. She worked alongside sanitation. Crews. She listened. She learned names. She apologized not once but often, slowly, sincerely. One evening Eleanor visited Arthur alone. "I was afraid of becoming nothing without my status," she confessed. "So I treated others as if they already were." Arthur smiled, placing a hand over hers. "Now you understand the lesson my life taught me late. Nothing is wasted, neither trash nor people. The story didn't end with punishment. It ended with transformation. And in a city that once overlooked the hands that kept it clean, a new respect quietly grew because one man chose disguise over comfort, and one woman chose awakening over pride."